So I just had a glimpse of the rooftop and lunch that will be served. Thank you for staying for the panel.
Yes, thank you so much. And Jérôme, Aurélie, and Ben, thanks for being here and putting together that panel, which provides a lot of diversity and reflects today's reality, which is, I think, by fact, multi-chain. That multi-chain reality, however, and we're going to address it today, creates some discussions and problems, let's say, for institutionals trying to build products addressing today's main use cases, for example, tokenization. This diversity, I can illustrate it with some data. Ethereum nowadays is one of the most used chains, and I think a number that very well illustrates this usability is the fact that Ethereum hosts more than 50% of stablecoins supply. When it comes to Solana, it's one of the fastest chains that run nowadays with above 1,000 TPS. And when it comes to Canton, I'm sure you haven't missed it, but you guys have managed to bring together more than 200 partners, amongst which we have some of the largest financial institutions globally. And so in today's panel, to start with, I really wanted to ask you the question, why builders would choose Ethereum, Solana, or Canton? What makes you different? And yeah, who wants to start? Ben? You're on the right.
Actually volunteered. Yeah, look, thank you first. Great to join you all. Wonderful to be here. I think first of all, look, I guess prior to joining Solana, I was at Fidelity International, so I guess I had previously been in these shoes in terms of how we make decisions on which chain. I think the first thing is probably staying a little bit humble, which is we're still phenomenally early. So I think the first thing is any enterprise making a choice is you're probably going to choose or want to choose multiple chains. That would be a very logical, sensible approach to take. We're still very early in our development, although we'd say, been here 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 4? 3 years. But just being respectful of that, which is that, we're still emerging technology. So I think any institution looking today, you should have multi-chain as part of your solution. That makes a huge amounts of sense. I think then looking at decision-making process of why you make that decision, I think it's sometimes fairly simple stuff, which is you're either looking at engineering performance, or you're going to be looking at distribution and liquidity. Is it stable coins? Is it real-world assets? Is it distribution networks? All I'd say, which I think is really positive, is from a maturity perspective, we've all been there and I'm sure been stuck in those debates around what proofs you had or underlying validator network, or these really kind of deep technical debates, which candidly for me, I think at times were unhelpful. I think what's really positive today is where the market's moved, and even the panel before this, I don't think we're stuck now in these kind of deep, sometimes philosophical, sometimes very academic debates around strength of technology and the right path of technology. I think where we are today is talking about stablecoin flows, real world assets coming on chain, user base. Those are the critical things, and those are things that are informing decision making now, which is great to see.
So as you would expect, as a guardian of the temple, I fairly disagree on not having those philosophical questions. For us, credible neutrality and the quality of the security that we bring is paramount. But I do agree that from an institutional standpoint and an adoption standpoint, you should build where you will find attraction, where you will find adoption, where you will find things that will make your product work. So far, the lingua franca, the English of blockchain is Ethereum and the EVM standard. So if you're new to this technology, maybe you will find promising career at Canton or at Solana, and you will have a wonderful project to work on. But every single engineer starts with learning how to code on Ethereum, because this is where we have most of the resources available to learn, and this is where we have most of the activity so far. Doesn't mean that we will be the first forever, but still, this is where to start. And the good news is that both on Solana and on Canton, you will also have EVM layers, so your knowledge on those layers can also be applied there. Now, it's true that chains are different from a performance standpoint, purely on the number of transactions that they can record and also on some of the privacy features that they can propose. But as time goes, those different elements come to in a form of homogeneity. You start to find same features here and there. Ethereum is a welcoming community, a welcoming industry, and we are always looking at seeing what the different contenders, the different competitions that we face are doing and how we can improve. And we do believe that this is where you find the best security so far and the most future-proofness. One of the reasons why I think the institutions should pay a lot of attention to Ethereum is that by 2030 you should abandon a CDSA and move to content proof. And Ethereum has a proper roadmap and half of it is already implemented. So you're also future-proofing your infrastructure by picking Ethereum. And maybe if Canton and Solana update and imply content proofness, you can also use what you've built on Ethereum, on Solana and on Canton. So you're not wasting your resources by not picking a winner and go straight to Ethereum.
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me, and great to be on a panel here with Ben and Jérôme. I have a question for the crowd. So what is the biggest public network today? Anyone has an answer to that? Like, what is the biggest public network, undeniable? And internet, yeah, exactly. So basically with Canton, we didn't reinvent the wheel. It's like internet. It's a public network with configurable privacy at the app level. So basically, at the protocol level, this is like the app developers, they can decide the configurable privacy. So for example, if you are a bank, do you want your app to be permissionless, public, private? So you have certain settings, okay, likely they will want people to be, you have to put your login, KYC, permission to go into your bank's website. If you're like a newspaper on internet, then it's okay to be public, you don't have to do like any logins. So similar with Canton, it's what we call configurable privacy. And so it's really each person, like each app developer can decide on a need-to-know basis, like you have different roles and then decides. And so for the banks and for other like financial institutions, like Tradeweb of the world, like Franklin Templeton, or Visa that we just announced, or Broadridge, it's quite a relief when we tell them there's a configurable privacy because they don't have to change their behaviors. We give them an environment that exactly fits their needs and their fiduciary responsibilities. And so that's again, that's a big relief for them when they see that solution. So configurable privacy is one, atomicity. So atomicity, so you know when you talk about PVP, DVP, the ability to move payment to payment, delivery versus payment, people think it's made instantaneously in TradFi, but actually it's not. There's a lot of settlement risk, counterparty risk, and so the fact that you have atomic settlement, it's a huge enabler in terms of trust and removing the settlement risk. The most important one for me, and the feature that really makes blockchain like very appealing to the traditional world, is composability. So you add a programmable layer. So let's say I would put like a DTCC. So as many of you may know, DTCC is tokenizing US treasuries. They decided to start with Canton as the first chain. And so then you can enable, so you have that foundational block that's already like massive, like being able to have someone like DTCC getting like a no action relief from SEC to be able to tokenize US treasuries. Like DTCC is a CSD, so centralized security deposit, it's extremely important to the US economy, and so having such a big, it's a non-profit, like getting a letter from the SEC. When we run panels like a year ago, it was like always like a regulatory clarity. That's the biggest hurdle to growth for our industry. But now we have it, and the SEC move with the DTC is massive. And so having like this building block, like when you think about tokenized US Treasury, for me, like I think almost like as a better cash leg, because it's it's better than a stable coin. You have yield. It's your counterparty risk is directly with DTCC. It's not with the issuer. So what it's going to unlock is beyond what anyone of us can see. And then you have like programmability. So ability. I'm just going to give you an example. So today, stablecoin issuers, even like the biggest one, they struggle to redeem 24/7, like on the weekends. So they need to have like capital during the weekend because before they had like a Silvergate, Signet, like that would allow them to redeem 24/7. This line doesn't exist anymore. So they need to have that capital on the weekend. And sometimes they may be overcapitalized, undercapitalized, and that has cost to it. Huh? And so ability to do 24/7 repos for stablecoin issuers, but also many institutions is huge, you know. So, and that's what we've started to do with like a Société Générale, Virtue, Citadel, doing 24/7 repo with DTCC. Huh? So yeah, long answer, but configurable privacy, atomicity, and composability. Yeah.
Just to add something on that, Aurélie,
yes.
While composability is within a network, do you still think, though, that there is room for a multi-chain reality, even though Canton may be building the internet of tomorrow based on this, on a decentralized network? Do you think that institutions would, like, they may enter that space with Canton as it's built for their use cases specifically, but do you think they would expand to other networks as Ethereum and Solana?
So I welcome also Ben and Jerome's thought on that, but on the composability, if you have like a multi-chain world, like it's important, like on the distribution, like you would have a Franklin Templeton, they would distribute on different chain. I understand that you need to be in many different shops. Then when it comes to composability, which is like the main feature for me, like in terms of additional value, programmability and composability, being the main feature of added value from a blockchain for the institution to come on chain. There's a, I would say, I want to call it the weakest link, but when you do composability cross-chain, you have to go through either solvers or bridges. And so bridges can be costly, they can have latencies, and the most sophisticated bridges that are what we call decentralized bridges, they tend to be even more costly and even more latency. So it's almost like you have to choose, like either you have a bridge that is like seamless and then you have a risk of single point of failure, or you have those that are a bit more decentralized, but then there's latency and cost. So the beauty with Canton is you have like composability, so you would have like a DTCC with US Treasuries and then TradeWeb, the repo app on chain, and they can compose programmatically. So yeah.
So I want to sum it up, like it's the same old world with a fresh new paint and a token. So you are in very good hands. Same counterparty, same things, same weaponization eventually, same censorship, but everything is with a token in a composable network a little bit more. So in Canton, you have the super validator as your main counterparty, and as long as you are comfortable with doing that, like you trust the counterparty, and things go all right. That's roughly not the approach that the industry in the blockchain space have taken so far. We want to provide neutrality and eventually credible neutrality to in terms of access, in terms of censorship resistance, so that you don't have to care about this. I look forward to see at some point Canton eventually becoming an L2 on Ethereum. I think it would be an interesting approach. I mean, it's going to be really great for the Canton token valuation, I think, because you don't have to spill to the super validator anymore. And also you get much better bridging towards Ethereum, or eventually you become an L2 on Solana eventually. But it's an interesting take. Like in the L2 approach of Ethereum, we thought that many different L2 specific use cases use case specific L2s, let's say, will be emerging, and they are starting to emerge. But at the same time, there is an appeal for layer one. So while layer one, why the users should care. I think I see the layer one as a in an immature phase in their first years, just to develop the network, develop the network effect, attract the early adopters and so on. So you're spilling a lot of token, you're rewarding the people that are validating, you're trying to attract projects and so on. And then eventually you reach this network effect, this large amount of transaction and adoption, and you can say like all of the name that you quoted, like all of those people are using our network. Look, we are something that counts. And then you have to switch into the maturity standpoint, where you need to build bridges towards different ecosystem and continue the flywheel of bringing more people. This is where the Ethereum base becomes really interesting, I think. So I really look forward to see how Kenton will evolve on that front. And in the meantime, you have technologies that are on the forefront of technology. Like how do we protect ourselves for 2030 and quantum threats? How do we make sure that we continue to be welcoming stablecoins and real-world assets? How do we make sure that we build standard smart contracts that are fully audited and have proven the time with some hacks, with some countermeasures, with some improvement, so that people feel safe on letting the thing run by itself without having to trust a counterparty or to make sure that the super validator is still alive in the next week or the next 24 hours. And then you can go into the super high-speed stuff on Solana, for example.
So yeah, maybe Ben, can you follow up on this? Because, I mean, we cannot make this panel without addressing the elephant in the room. Ethereum, Solana, you guys have won so much over the latest years, building different technologies, focusing on different features, providing solid, reliable technologies to many users, including massive institutional firms. So can you tell me where each of you win in the institutional race?
Yeah, sure. I think first is probably starting from like our perspective out, so that we philosophically and abjectly believe in concentration. So we believe in an L1. We think an L1 is the right answer. Why? Because it concentrates mind share, liquidity, developers. And we believe that's statistically been shown to be true. So there are now as many total number of developers on Solana as there are now on Ethereum. So we've achieved that in half the time. I think it's important to acknowledge. There's more stablecoin volumes on Solana than there are on any other chain. We are the highest revenue generating chain. So the reason why I kind of share those things is a baseline. If you're looking for a technology choice, if you're looking at where you can build, well, follow the money and follow the developers. That's the most honest route, because I think it's important to acknowledge that when we're looking at institutional adoption, where did this technology start? And it didn't start in institutions, okay? I got into the space in 2014. I'm an originally EVM guy, sat in the office and watched the launch of EVM, of Ethereum. It was kind of it was a revolution. It was this phenomenal event. But I think looking forward now, I think we just have to acknowledge that where we're seeing kind of a central out mindset, so an institutional out, I don't necessarily think that's where the innovation is going to take place. Actually, categorically, it's not where the innovation is going to take place. The innovation is always going to happen on the periphery. It will happen in DeFi, and it will continue to happen in DeFi. So I think if we're looking at on-chain solutions, if you are looking to build new product, new liquidity, if you're looking to access new distribution, new markets, the only two places to go are EVM and SVM. They're the only ecosystems that flourish and enable that to be provided to you. So if I look at an institutional choice, I think today, and it's important to acknowledge, I think you would naturally be looking at an EVM or an SVM solution. I think from our perspective, where we generally sit and say is that, our TPS, sorry to correct you at the start, it's not 1,000, it's 65,000 going up to 150,000. So if you're looking from a pure performance perspective, we outperform any other network. So if you're an engineer looking for high performance, low cost, that's one debate. However, that's not enough, right? I said at the start here, I've been sat in too many conversations where it's pure technology led. We need to move the debate beyond that now. What we're looking for is deep markets of developers, builders, liquidity, okay, stable coins. And that is, happy to sit here humbly and say that still Ethereum still leads the way in a number of those parameters. So I think if you're making a decision from an institutional perspective, one, I guess my view is that if you're coming on chain because it's been led by an innovation narrative, the only place to come to is an L1. I'd say that with conviction. If you're looking for an engineering solution, then just look at the facts. Like, look at performance, look at flow, look at stablecoin flow. You can publicly go on and view these things. That is the beauty of a public system, okay? You can ratify this yourself, okay? And you can prove it yourself. And it's available to everyone at any time, anywhere in the world, okay? Publicly available. It's really quite profound. These are not gatekeepers. There is not a preference of validators. This is available to everyone. When it comes down to making your choice, I think some of the things that have been said as well, I think are absolutely important, which is, you should be asking questions today about distribution, about flow, about where are your clients. So not necessarily just what an institution wants. Where are your corporates? Where are your retail users today? Where is your future wealth? Okay, and they're on L1s. That's the only place they are.
It reminds me, so in one of the panels earlier at the Agora, there was a panel on ETPs, and it was quite interesting because listening on this panel, I actually realized that networks that have built very strong retail adoption actually are a great place for product issuers who wish to tokenize, to provide tokenized products like funds, as in terms of retail distribution, it actually provides them with an already ready ground to develop and get their products adopted by the biggest numbers. Maybe Jérôme, do you want to add something?
Oh, yeah, sure. So quick, simple advice. If you want to have the same number of developers as Ethereum, you should just add up the EVM, and then you have an EVM layer, and you can say, like, I have as many developers, which is great. It is a great way to attract more people to just play around with your underneath layer, and at some point adopt maybe your other way of doing smart contracts. The point is, right now, Ethereum is seeing the thing a little bit differently in terms of its institutional adoption. There is a privacy track right now on the research side at the Ethereum Foundation, trying to figure out what is the right approach to privacy for institutions and for users, like multiple different dimensions that you should optimize for. One of the key things we want to optimize for is durability. We don't want privacy that have a expiration date. So that's a big topic for us to make sure that the standard that we push in terms of privacy are standards that will last the test of time, and also that are that have enough demand to be adopted at the layer 1. Because the other approach that we push to institutions is just, well, build your layer 2. There are multiple different frameworks that you can use to build your own layer 2. Last year at ETCC, we had Robinhood announcing their own layer 2. One of the most successful chain in terms of revenue is Base from Coinbase. Inc. from Kraken is also performing really well. So those are real use cases that large centralized institutions are just using on Ethereum to build those kind of thing. And you can build your privacy features at the L2 level. I do believe that the L1 premium is slowly going to disappear because the performance of the tokens at launch for the L1s are not that great to attract the retail investors anymore. And also, once you have launched your network, you need to maintain it. You need to continue having tokens being printed to attract validators or to attract new projects. And that's a constant race against bringing adoption, printing enough tokens so there is people coming to play around with the token and maintaining the network. And that's a really hard thing to do. And this is where suddenly you can find an interesting home at Ethereum where the security is provided by the layer 1 and the features are constantly pushed to the latest of the tech. And you benefit from this kind of push at the layer 2 level as well. But nevertheless, having different approaches is really helping us grow. We have to remember that we are really early in this space still. Just 10 years of Ethereum last year. We still have a lot of things to grow and a whole industry to migrate on new rails. Hence why it's super important to keep track on what's going on in the public space, what's going on in DeFi, and why would you tokenize in the first place? Well, to make the thing available on DeFi. Yesterday we had June showing up some numbers on the real world assets. We are at 1.5 billion being tokenized on Ethereum, but only 0.8% are on DeFi. So the room for growth just for thing to be active on DeFi is huge. And at the same time, we will migrate more, so having a bigger ratio of availability on DeFi compared to what's just minted. We will also grow the pie of what has been tokenized. So I guess institutions, we are open for business.
We cannot have this discussion, however, I mean, you touched on this a bit, Jerome, but without talking about privacy. So, well, Canton's development shows the importance of privacy for real adoption by financial institutions of such networks, but the privacy debate is not new. The privacy debate and topic in general started with ZK, specifically applied to the EVM ecosystem, now has proven its success with Canton with a very different technological approach. And in case you've missed it, Solana has made headlines last week with introducing a new privacy framework on the Solana network. So I'm wondering actually what privacy is gonna bring the ecosystem, and if you can describe each of your approaches to privacy. Maybe we can start with you, Ben, as it's big news for Solana.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think when you look at privacy, you can't look at it in a vacuum. You need privacy with performance. You need privacy with users. You need privacy with distribution. And I think it's really important to look at that. You need privacy with regulatory compliance. And I think it's, when you look at privacy, and I think there's been for too long now a perception that privacy not possible on public. And that's just completely categorically not true. Like that's just a misnomer. And probably a frustration from our side, from an L1. When we talk to institutions, and we have some of the largest institutions in the world on Solana today, take that as a view of conviction from their side. That's not me telling you, that's them telling the market that they believe they can deploy regulatory compliant solutions that deliver the privacy criteria they need on public. Fact. Like that's why they're there, that's why they're deploying. That's not me saying it, that's them saying it. But really, what do we mean by privacy? I think it's important to dig into it a bit more. Is it privacy at a contract level? Is it privacy at a wallet level? Is it privacy at a validator level? And it's really important to, this is not one simple solution for all. From a Solana perspective, what have we deployed? You see our Contra solution coming to market, and why have we deployed that? Look, we're a product-driven entity. We respond to the market. That's why I'd like to think that from an ethos perspective, that Solana has been able to grow as much and scale our ecosystem and attract builders, and it's the builders that are doing these things. And what do we here we need to do, and what have we deployed? Is looking for confidential balances. We're looking to be able to mask or create pseudo-anonymity around addresses, data being held. All these things are now possible on Solana. They are being deployed in April, in May. They will be live. So institutions can access that and use that. So I think what's really important from our perspective is that we've sat down with our institutional clients, we've sat down with the regulator, sat down with the ECB, all these other counterparties, and listened to their requirements. And we've built to those requirements. And they will be live this year. So I guess my wrap up here is that, when we look at privacy, you can't look at it in a vacuum. You cannot have a fully locked down private network and have open distribution. It's just impossible to do. You can't have fully locked down privacy and open to any developer in the world at any point in time to build solutions. You have to, if I say compromise, but I don't mean that in a negative, I mean you have to look at this Venn diagram, okay? Some use cases and some institutions will factor in, extreme privacy. So actually, even not the institutions, when we find we're talking to likes of Apple or Google, if you look at their networks, and sometimes they don't want like creator-to-creator exchanges happening, they have even higher criteria than institutions have. So I can say it's important to look at on an actor-by-actor basis what they're seeking to achieve. But I'm confident this year that we'll see, more privacy-enabled solutions being built on L1s because you can do that.
Who wants to go next?
Yes. So privacy obviously is a big topic. It's not only at the institutional level. It's also at the, like, all of you. Like, let's say you go to the doctor. Would you want your doctor to know what is on your bank account? You know, it's like it seems obvious. You know, like a transparency has been a given in blockchain, but sometimes it feels more like a bug. And so it's there's also some issues in terms of traders being front-run, because you can see what is on their wallet and what is being moved. When you put like margin calls, or like there's collateral movement for margin calls, then also like traders don't want to be exposed. Banks, they have, or financial institutions, they have like fiduciary responsibilities. And so there's a strong, like, a lot of institutions, they want to lean forward in terms of innovation, they want to be there, but they have those limitations in terms of fiduciary responsibility. So there's a huge need for that, and again, it's a relief when we show them the solution. We have a huge respect for ZK, like our CTO, one of the co-founders of the company Digital Asset, creating a Canton network, was part of the research team of ZK. And he realized there was like limitations, like very strong limitations. For example, if we see some solutions that are like private networks, so imagine this room, we are all a private network. All of us were a private network, like designed by these walls. But everyone in this room can see what everyone is doing. It's private, but we can still see what everyone is doing. And so that doesn't work, you know, like for the way Canton was designed, it's like everything is done on a need-to-know basis. You know, not every node on the network validates all the transactions, you know, so it's like everything is done on a need-to-know basis. And that's very foundational and extremely needed to get institutional adoption. Yeah.
So fundamentally with blockchain, we traded intermediaries that enforce this need-to-know basis and protect our privacy. We traded that for transparency, and we obtained programmable bearer assets. That's the beauty of it. Like an asset that lives on the blockchain is programmable thanks to the blockchain, and it's a bearer asset. You just have to sign a message, and the transfer will be done. In the early days of Bitcoin, in the very discussion with Satoshi Nakamoto, back in when he was still active, he was just saying, like, guys, just do multiple wallets, just have multiple wallets. Like there's no problem with that, just multiple wallets. So you preserve your anonymity with having tons and tons and tons of wallets. When we look at, well, for the layman that is using blockchain on a day-to-day basis, most of them are 1 or 2 or 3 wallets, and they are fine with this. This doesn't work for institution per se, because there are compliance being enforced that your competitors shouldn't see that you are moving this and trading that, and this is your margin call. So the way we apply privacy and the type of privacy that we apply is very use case based. So it's a bit harder to have a clear privacy debates between the big words privacy. Everybody wants privacy. I'd rather be private than public. But at the same time, the way we apply privacy is very different from one case to the other. Say typically for the margin call approach, it should be a secret what your margin call price is, and the update that we pass to the blockchain shouldn't be clear that it's going to trigger the margin call. Those are typical ZK techniques and cryptographic techniques that can enforce that. But at the same time, everything goes in the same bucket of this is privacy. So there's no one size fits all in this kind of context, and this is why at Ethereum we try to approach it both on the individual side and on the institutional side, just working on a case-by-case basis by making the EVM as programmable as possible and as efficient as possible on those kind of topics. But historically, Ethereum has been on the side of the cypherpunks that wants to bring more freedom in using the asset to the layman. So we have to be at the forefront of this kind of thing. Hence why we had things like Tornado Cash in the early days of Ethereum. Hence why we had the first proper ZK proofs on Ethereum as well. So we are just following where the market is taking us on this, and we are also explaining to institutions that if you don't know exactly what your privacy requirements are, maybe you should start with a custodian. Maybe we should start with just going public on small number of assets. Just see what works, and then we can apply the privacy elements that fits your needs. There's still some unknown, I think, on how privacy should be enforced from the regulatory perspective on the blockchain. And some of the reasons why we had need-to-know basis in various cases were because we need to make sure that the counterparty risk is being properly handled. Well, lots of counterparty risk are being removed by the very functioning of the blockchain. So what is the exact requirement that you should have on privacy? Those are also open questions. And with institutional adoption of the technology, we'll have different approaches that will emerge, I think.
So still many open questions on the implementation of privacy, which though seems to be the feature that everyone is focusing on. Every network is working on, answering to demand from clients and partners who need this feature to be implemented. And maybe to close the panel, I wanted to go back to the main topic of it, which is why users care about a multi-chain world where collaboration may exist, specifically when we actually know by fact that institutions, when choosing a network, they need to make this choice independent. They cannot choose one or the other for X or Y reasons. These reasons need to be justified. And so as there may be a reality where Canton works with Ethereum, Ben and Jérôme, do you think there is a reality where Ethereum and Solana kind of work together? Or the approaches are different.
100%, of course. Give you a hug, sorry. But I think, just say on that, I think it's really interesting. I think, look, we come on this panel and hopefully, we're here to provide entertainment for you all. And I think, but it's also extremely collaborative, right? We have to acknowledge that, we sit in front of institutions and sometimes they want to put us on the spot and say, oh, tell us what's different between you. And we're like, look, where the market is today, if you are making a thoughtful technology choice, you should keep your options open. Like that would, I'm more than happy to say that. Look, I'm here as a Solana maxi, but also as a realist, that, the rising tide lifts us all. What, if you don't mind speaking on behalf of all of us here, is that we just want more deployments on chain. We want more products on chain. We all pick up the load sometimes for each other, sat in front of different compliance teams, different risk teams, different distribution teams, and sometimes we're arguing each other's case because we're like, we just want you to come on chain. If your smoothest pathway to come on is Ethereum first, if it's Canton first, if it's Solana first, it's just fantastic that you've made that step. So if I could just say kind of overall is that, yes, we are probably competitive between each other, but I think that's a fantastic thing because what does that drive? It drives technology innovation. It pushes all of us to do more. We leave here today and we listen to what each other said and we're like now, probably all of us, quite competitive individuals are like, right, we need to do more. We need to step our game up. We need more product deployment. We need to deliver more for our clients. I think that's a fantastic outcome for the market. So if I could say us continually developing our technology and being competitive is a fantastic outcome. On the other side, we also, I think, acknowledge each other is that we need each other where the market is today. So I don't want to kind of give a too soft an answer, but if I could say we are extremely competitive on one side and then we are extremely collaborative on the other because we all want the rising tide.
Also, some may be Canton first for some institutions, but this necessarily benefits other networks. Some institutions may enter with Canton and expand on other technologies, on other networks, based on their needs, even regulatory needs. So, yeah, do you have something to add before I close? No? We have some time for questions. So I'm going to end the panel on this very positive note. And if anyone in the room has questions, we're happy to take one or two. Thank you. No questions? All right, then. Thanks, everyone. So, very important information. We're hosting an amazing lunch at the rooftop with an amazing sea view. So you can all go on the 5th floor to enjoy lunch and come back at 2 for the rest of the panels. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.